How are you? Welcome to my kitchen. My name is Jeff Smith. I'm the Frugal Gourmet. And I want to remind you again, we've talked about this before, but I want to remind you again that the term frugal does not mean cheap. It simply means that you are efficient in your planning and you're careful in your purchase of food and in your purchase of good things for your kitchen and household. The term gourmet, you remember, means a lover of food and wine, and for that all of us qualify. But today I'd like to talk with you about efficient use of beef. The cow himself, is that right? The cow himself? The cow itself is not really a terribly efficient animal. That is to say, it takes a great amount of grain to prepare 1 pound of beef. It's very inefficient in terms of the ecological scale. And for that reason, we should probably begin to cut down on beef and spend more time perhaps with pork or chicken or whatever you can get by on. I'm really not fussy about which one, but I am concerned that we eat less beef primarily for our health. That is to say, we eat too much fat. And animal fat in your system, builds up in your blood vessels, and it causes terrific problems. Pork is the same, so is chicken. All animal fats produce cholesterol, all of them. But it is your liver that produces most of the cholesterol in your system, and animal fats that set it off. So if we can get on to more vegetable fats and fewer animal fats, we'll be set. So what I advocate today is the use of beef as flavoring rather than using beef as a whole meal. You know what we do. Instead of having a little bit of meat along with dinner, we kill an entire cow and set the poor girl on the buffet and serve it. That's absurd. So let me show you some good solutions to eating less meat and enjoying it very, very much. You can get away with this with your family, I promise. First of all, most of these dishes are Italian, by the way. First of all, let's try a beef brisket that we're going to cook and then a lovely sauce for it. A brisket is very, very fat. But if you purchase carefully, you can get a meat that isn't too terribly fat. You see the piece that I'm pointing here is not terribly fat. This is just nothing but fat. And this, of course, would have to be trimmed away before you put him in the pot. So let's do that right now on a beef brisket. If you live out on the West Coast, you don't see beef brisket very often. In the Midwest and on the East Coast, brisket's very, very common, just very common. And I just love the stuff. But it is fatty, so try and remove some of the fat first, and then you'll have better luck. Then we're going to throw them in a pot. We're going to boil it, you see? There. And we'll get rid of some of the fat here. At least a bit of it. All right, let's throw the brisket. I want a whole brisket, and I have a whole one for you in this other pot, but you want about a 3 or 4 pound brisket. Put him in a pot, and then we're going to add the following goodies to a brisket and then simply boil him. There's a snap to make and an awfully good dish. We want to add to the pot some salt and pepper. Very little salt, please. Remember that you need to cut down on salt as well as fat. Isn't this awful? Today I'm just going to harangue you about what you need to cut down on, but we're all the same. We consume much too much salt and much too much pepper, and it's just going to kill us off very soon. How about some thyme for seasoning here? Thyme leaves are just marvelous. It's a very French herb, but we're going to use it in an Italian style, and I think you'll enjoy it. And, of course, some garlic. We cannot give the credit for garlic to the Italians or anyone else. Garlic is common in so many cultures. I can only think of one culture that doesn't use garlic. You know, I think it's the Eskimo. Huh, where would he get it? I don't know. Well, you could grow it, I suppose. There must be places in the tundra where you can do this, but he doesn't use garlic. Everybody else in the world does. Okay, garlic and thyme, salt and pepper on our brisket. Now let's add some, where's a big fat onion? Here, I'll get a big one for us. I want to just very quickly chop up a yellow onion and throw him in the pot. Good Lord, that's not an onion, it's a bomb. Let's take half of it, huh? That's terrific in size. Cut off the bottom, then the top, and we'll just take off that outer peel. And remember, save that for your soup stock. That's what frugal means. Doesn't mean cheap, it means that you use everything and enjoy yourself. All right, let's just whack that up and put them in the old pot for our brisket. And then we're going to need a couple of carrots. Let's try 3, huh? You notice when I'm scraping, I use the back of my knife. Don't use the sharp edge of your knife when you're bored, or you're going to dull your knife. See, just turn your knife over, and when you want to scrape things around, fine, scrape around, but not with the sharp edge, because you'll dull it. There we go. Whoops, a little peel in there that we don't need, and how about a few stalks of celery too, just for seasoning and flavor. You can use whole peppercorns in this, by the way, if you would prefer that, so that it doesn't, the pepper isn't floating about in the water. What water? Well, I'm going to put it in a minute. Just be patient. Okay, have you got that? We have the pot ready now. We've added our vegetables, onions, carrots, celery, and now we're going to add a shot of parsley, and just add it, you see, just put it right in there. Okay, and the pot's ready to go. Let's cover everything with water now, and then bring that to a simmer. What a good simmer. Turn it down to a simmer. Bring it to a boil, turn it down to a simmer, and cook it for about 2.5 hours. It's going to take some time. But when you're finished, I'm not going to cook this one now. I'll cook this one later for myself when you're not here. But I have one for you. Let me show you. It's a marvelous dish, and I have a great sauce for it. Let me get some water going here for our sauce so you'll understand what I want to do today. There we go. And here's a brisket. He's in here somewhere. Let me clear a spot and we'll chop him up, huh? Isn't this a beautiful pot? You see the vegetables have cooked down, and he's really very delicious. And he's down here. Here he is, floating about. We'll just take him out of the pot. This is cooked for about 2.5 hours. You see him? Isn't he beautiful? See how nice and lean that is? That's going to be great eating in just about 2 seconds. Let's get a sauce going. I'll show you what I want to do. I'm going to prepare a very interesting Italian sauce. I really have stolen this dish from a fellow by the name of Joe at Original Joe's in San Francisco. He's great. He's on Broadway, and it's absolutely marvelous food. This is pretty close to what he serves with boiled brisket for lunch. I want to prepare the following vegetables. About 1/4 cup of parsley. Just chop it up. That's not 1/4 cup. Well, it doesn't matter. That looks more like 1.5 gallons, doesn't it, huh? Doesn't matter. Keep your fingers out of them, out of the knife. 1/4 cup of chopped parsley. We want a bit of yellow onion diced up or chopped very fine. About the same amount, huh? About 1/4 cup. That's not 1/4 cup, but I'm doing this in terms of my proportions, not in terms of yours. So you just pay attention and write it down, or if you get confused, we'll tell you later on where you can get our recipes. That's a snap too. But I do this in terms of my own proportions. For you, I write everything down, all right? 1/4 cup of parsley, 1/4 cup of onion. Then we want to add some green onions, probably 6 And we'll just chop those up very, very quickly. And I have a pan of water boiling on the stove. And the water is going to be used for blanching the green onions, yellow onions, and parsley. We're going to throw it into a pot, blanch it, and then we're going to toss this with an Italian salad dressing. We'll have a green sauce for pasta, or for our meat that you won't believe. So in it goes to the pot. It's very, very quickly. The water's boiling, you see. Stir that about. Count to 11, or close to that. Very little time. No time in this. No, not time. Not that kind of time. But it takes a little time to make this. Let's see. Now we need a strainer. And I'll drain this for us. And we'll be all set, you see. Blanch this for just a very short time, and it'll be very flavorful. Okay. Back to it. We now have, this is going to be warm, you see. Now I don't want to serve this warm. I want to serve it cold, so I have another one in the refrigerator for you. Now, into that one, we want to add 1 clove of garlic, a good fat one. Incidentally, this garlic press, you've seen me use it before, is a Susi, S-U-S-I. I urge you not buy something that, they have self-cleaning garlic presses, you know. They have all kinds of crazy gadgets, but they really don't work very well. I have great trouble with them. This is my favorite, a Susi. It's made in Switzerland. It's imported by a lot of big gourmet companies. Hohen brings them in, for instance, so that you can tell your gourmet dealer or your department store where you can get them. Hohen, and it's a Susi. It's the best one in the market. It costs you a fortune, but it's just great. All right, a clove of garlic. Then we're going to add a bit of salt and pepper to our sauce, a green sauce. There we go. A little bit of salt, tiny bit of salt. And let's try 2 tablespoons of wine vinegar, white wine vinegar. That's 2, exactly. Did you see me measure that carefully? 2 glurgs is about 2 tablespoons. I'm lying. Just, you'll figure it out. Stop using spoons and measuring devices, and pretty soon you'll be very comfortable with this sort of thing. And we're ready. Now we need to add a little bit of oregano and a bit of rosemary. 2 classic Italian herbs, just a pinch. And stir this up. And I like to refrigerate it, let it marinate for a bit. Now notice in the rosemary, so I'm going to have to pinch that, break it up, you see, so that the needles almost looks like a pine tree, a pine needle, doesn't it? Rosemary. But it's not. It's a little shrub. It will grow pretty good size. I have a hedge at home of rosemary. I love it. Fresh rosemary is heaven. There we are. Now, we'll stir that up and refrigerate it. Now, I have one in the refrigerator. I'm going to get it for you right now. It's already cold, and it's been sitting for a time. I want it to marinate, you see, so that we can blend the flavors. Here it is. Oh, this stuff is just heavenly. I can't believe it. Let me show you how this would be served. This is a classic beef dish, and it's marvelous for a family in which you want to say, eat less beef, but I'm not going to cut you out completely, you see? That's what we've got to start doing. I don't want to go cold turkey, you know, in which we give up everything. That's not fair. Get a platter here for us. Okay. Knives all over the place. Let's cut this. Let's turn it over. I'm trying to cut it with the fat side down, and it's sliding all over the board. Cut it with the fat side up. And you see, you can trim the fat off of this very easily. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, I love it. You can barely sense the presence of the carrots and herbs and onions that we used in the pot. Okay, all of this will go onto our platter now. Alrighty. There we go. Now then, you can either serve the sauce on the side, or you can do what I'm going to do now, and that's spoon the sauce on the meat right away. But I want to do something that's colorful, so let's put it along the center instead of just putting it all over the joint, you see. We don't want to cover up the meat. Just put it along the center. Gee, we need some parsley garnish too, don't we? That looks awful. Color's very important on the old plate. Let's just put a shot, I think just about on this side. There you have a dish of Italian brisket with green sauce that I think is first class. I'll put this aside, and then I want to show you another one that's great, just great fun to make. Did you get that recipe? Nothing to it. Boil the brisket with some vegetables and perhaps a little bit of thyme and garlic. And then the sauce is made of parsley, onions, and green onions, about 1/4 cup of each, 6 green onions. And then we're going to add to that, after we've blanched it, a bit of garlic and some salt and pepper, and then a couple tablespoons of vinegar and olive oil. You're making a salad dressing, you see. And some a pinch each of rosemary and oregano. And you have it. Now, in this next one, we're going to have great fun with a round steak. Because you have to figure out some way, instead of cooking the whole big steak, you see, you have to figure out some way to cook a round steak that'll really turn them on and not fill them up with so much meat. So I purchased a good-sized round steak. It's rather thin, you see. This isn't expensive. Who says it isn't expensive? I'm lying. Meat's expensive. Beef's terribly expensive, let's face it. But on sale, you can do pretty well on something like a round steak. It's rather tough, you see, that's why. But we're going to cook it in such a way that it isn't tough at all. It's not tough at all. Save these pieces for your soup pot, right? The bones, fat, throw them in the pot, and it'll drain the fat off later. Now, what I'm going to do, trim this down a bit. I think it looks fine. I'm going to tenderize this. So get ready, because the noise is just going to be terrible. So put the cat out, put him outside, and we're going to pound this down using, first of all, you can use a wooden meat pounder. You see? You've seen these before? This is a great gimmick, a wooden meat pounder. And we just want to take off with this, you see? You can buy these. Are made of metal, aluminum, whatever you like. See, the meat is getting bigger. We're spreading it out, right? Better gadget is a device like this. Waldo in Brooklyn imports these from Portugal. They're absolutely gorgeous. They're solid brass. They cost a fortune. They're about, I don't know, they're $40, something like this. But look what it does. You see? Isn't this a riot?